Well, I saved the hottest for last as we consider the doctrine of angels and the doctrines of demons and Satan, and we've looked at, for 2 weeks we spent talking about the biblical doctrine of hell. And the reason why we do this is because we know, like these other topics, it is very poorly understood. The question that is often asked from those who struggle with this doctrine is, what grounds does God have to punish someone for it?
I think this will become breakthrough because the sickness appears to operate off of a non-steroid ligand binding receptor protein. And that implies that the steroid makeup must be poor, which makes you wonder if the aromatic safety making surrounded by polar molecules, what was to give these plants any sort of resistance? Well, it'd be easy if I wanted to continue another day to find out, but truth be told, this hotel stuff doesn't want me. But truth be told, the hotel staff doesn't even want me saving humanity, so, they must be infected or something. I'm not completely sure, but for some reason, these plants are not affected. And, you could say it's a breakthrough, but I don't know, maybe it's not that bad. I've never seen anyone directly suffer on its behalf, and, I got people around me, sick, but it's never even affected me too much. If anything, it's made the life a little easier, going to the dream world and meeting that girl. It's really awesome, actually, and, she doesn't want to come out to reality, which is fine. She doesn't have to be in my picture, not want to come to reality for some BS reason, which is fine, but if my picture is always going to be defamed, but if my picture is always going to be defaced and destroyed, then why keep painting,
What justification is there for a holy and perfect God to forgive a wicked and rebellious sinner?
It's just this research feels like it's gone to waste. But
listen, Mr. Eagle, Nature Man, I don't know what's your problem. I don't know what's your name. I don't know what your pronouns are. Listen, all I'm trying to say is, I've been doing this, wildlife stuff, right? And you're like a wildlife guy, so I'd expect you to know a lot about it, right? And, this disease is, we're all sick, and, it's kind of your fault if you think about it, because you're, the wildlife dude. Listen, what I'm trying to say is, if you have any sort of, advice or help for me, I'm talking to an eagle.
None of this makes any more sense. None of this makes sense anymore. I go to a tree, and, from the tree you contract the disease, and it has to be contact to the tree. But other plants are resistant to this sort of, evil, this death, this disease. I don't understand. I want to love and to be loved, but there's nothing. There is love.
Why does God allow me to suffer? Why is there evil in this world? And I'm affected by it. You see, the starting point is us. That's the secular view. And when you take on a biblical worldview, when you truly put on the lens where you view all things, and all problems in the universe, as fundamentally the problem of how in the world is God's goals and desires and expectations, how are those problems going to be answered so that God will get His glory?
I want my branches to bear fruit because I've been watering them for so long. And I don't know what I'll do if they don't soon.